Hey, this is Dr. Glenn Livingston, and I am here with Terry Dean, and he is doing excellent, aren't you, Terry?
I am doing excellent, and we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects.
And it's not puppy dogs, and it's not Star Wars, so it must be...
Must be email, then.
Must be, well, if it's not dogs or Star Wars, you know Terry's talking about email. And why is email one of your favorite subjects?
Email is one of my favorite subjects because it's what really drives my business and my clients' businesses. And it's been that way all the way since I first got started back in 1996 till today. I mean, we've had hiccups throughout time. We've had times where it was tough to get email through. We've had all kinds of what people would call problems, like Gmail adding in tabs, things like that. But email continues to be the driver of profits in businesses like ours.
You know, it's interesting you say that because when you're in internet marketing, inevitably every 6 months or so, something's happening and people start panicking and saying the sky is falling and really you can't make money with email anymore, or you can't make money with blog anymore, or you can't make money with copywriting anymore. Now everything has to be a video. Inevitably people say the sky is falling, but when you're around this for a while, you find out that what really makes you the money is the fundamentals. And two of the strongest fundamentals are get people on a list, find out what they want, and talk to them about what they want and make them offers. With all of the social media advances and video advances and canned spam laws and deliverability and everything like that, it's a lot of noise. It's a lot of noise, and we have to deal with it. But the truth is that if you just get people on a list, find out what they want, and give them what they want by talking to them, then you're going to make money.
It really is that simple. And let's even talk about it a little bit more. You said every 6 months, there's something that we say the skies are falling. There's some disaster that happens, even if we put it out. We'll say that some disaster happens online every year at some point. Well, email can be a stabilizer through those. Let's say, for example, you're running ads in Google and you get kicked out of Google. If you're just relying on Google, you don't have an email list, anything like that, you're now out of business. Day one. If you have an email list, you can keep on going right from where you were. An example of that is I had a website that got hit pretty badly during a Google update for SEO. Well, that month, you hear everybody talking about the disaster. They're out of business. They're no longer in Google. They're not getting the traffic they were. Well, that month, I earned the same as I did the month before because it was coming from the list.
Right.
That was annoying. That meant there was a lot of work I had to do in the business for it, but it did not change the income of the business because email was driving the business all the way through.
That could be the case for even a couple of years. I mean, especially if you combine an email list with a continuity business where you just work really hard to drive people from email into your continuity program, you can live on that. And in some cases, you could live on that indefinitely.
The thing is, you don't have to. Since the email will keep you stable, that means you have money coming in to invest in what it takes to get a different traffic source. So you're not in danger at that point. I mean, if all of your income was based on whatever traffic source you're using and there's a problem with it and you now don't have any income, you're in trouble because it's going to be tough to get something else working. But if you have money coming in, you have time because money is coming in, then it's, I wouldn't say easy, but it's just the natural process that you're going to work hard to find a new source.
Why else do you love email so much? You've been actually coaching and marketing longer than I have online. You're probably the grandpa of internet marketing. Why is it that email is where you're choosing to focus?
When I first started online, I'll just say I got lucky in the very beginning. I stumbled upon email in the very beginning and started building an email list. And it was about 6 months in that I realized that email was driving my monthly profits. Since then, as I said, we went through all these different changes, everything else. But email continues to drive the profits. And I'll even say it's the great equalizer. Because I have a lot of clients that they go into markets. This shouldn't surprise you, Glenn. I'm sure it doesn't. But they go into markets where some of their competitors are making promises that aren't realistic. Let's just say that the subject was weight loss and competitors are making promises that people are going to instantly lose weight. If it's a head-to-head conversion test, sadly, most people will jump on the miracle solution even though it's not true. But by using email, we're able to pull people onto a list without making those insane promises. We pull them onto a list, we build a relationship over time, and we can sell to the right customer. And that's what you can really say here. I use email as a sifting and sorting mechanism. I bring subscribers in. I share information. Sometimes it's brutal truth. It's kind of funny. I saw some of my testimonials from my coaching clients, and I got referred to as giving the brutal truth that helped them improve their business. I got called brutal multiple times, but I do that in the email too. I'll give the brutal truth in the email, and that sorts my subscribers into who should be a customer with me and who should not. And it becomes an equalizer against those who are willing to make promises that just aren't true.
And Terry, just for the record, you absolutely are brutal. Being a guy who's paid you to review some of my copy and kind of had a relationship with you all these years, I just want to, if anybody has any doubt, you're a really nice guy and everybody loves talking to you, but man, are you brutal. It's absolutely true.
It just comes back to the fact if you're not going to give people the truth, then what's the point of doing it?
I'd rather hear it from you than my customers.
So email gives that benefit, and it really allows you to have that sifting and sorting and generate the right customers, because I think you're the one who first said it, Glenn, that for somebody who's in a consulting or a coaching business, it only takes one bad apple to ruin the whole business for you.
That's true. And so what you're saying is that Camus originally said the truth is a poor competitor in the marketplace of ideas, but that's true on a one-shot sale. That's not necessarily true in the long run, because there's a smaller group of good people who really want to know the truth and will take the time to learn it. And if you sell to those customers and it requires time and it requires relationship building to sell to those customers, then you actually can sell with the truth. Maybe not the, well, hey, you're going to work hard and suffer and spend a lot of money and then eventually you emerge victorious. Maybe not that brutal.
Well, I did a sales letter before that was for a group coaching program that I purposely made sure that the headline and the first paragraph or two used the word work 4 times. So basically, I told them that you're going to work really hard and I can't promise success. And I had several people who bought it and told me that they had been on my list for 2 years. They're on all kinds of other people's lists. This is the first time that they've ever bought anything that had to do with internet marketing, because this is the first time that they believed someone.
That's great.
That is the kind of customer you want to attract, because that's a very realistic customer. And again, that came from the relationship. As I said, they had been on the list for 2 years.
Even though it's so powerful, and even though you can, like Jonathan Meisel once told me, I was talking to him, this was when I was recovering from my big financial meltdown in the early 2000s, and said, I really need to make some more money. And he said, well, Glenn, if you need to make some more money, write some more follow-ups. They're frickin' free and they go out to these people and a percentage of them buy. And I said, oh, so if you need to make more money, write some more follow-up. That's something I should write on my forehead. That makes sense. Each
autoresponder, depending on the size of your list and the relationship with your list, you could even think of this, each autoresponder you write might be worth $1,000 or $10,000, or if you're just getting started, maybe it's worth $100. But every new autoresponder you write is money in the bank.
It's really true. I remember you used to talk about a subscriber being worth $1 per month, which is pretty good, but I think that it's actually evolved quite a bit since then, hasn't it, Terry?
It has. Well, that was a statement that I made early on. As I said, I stumbled upon email, and I discovered that the first year in business that my subscribers were worth $1 a month for me. That first year in business. And so I said at a lot of the conferences I spoke at from 98 to 2000 that a subscriber was worth $1 a month in the early on phases. And it's funny that people have taken that statement and you hear it quoted all over the internet now. And we're talking about a statement that I haven't made for a decade of how much it's worth. I have clients now who earn a lot more than that. Of course, it depends on the market you're in and who you're marketing to and what you're selling. The only person that you really compete with is yourself. So you might do worse than that, or you might do a whole lot better than that.
My experience is better. Of course, we can't guarantee it. Email is tremendously valuable. You build relationships over time. As you build that relationship, it becomes easier to sell to people. It becomes possible to sell them more expensive things with less work. I probably do about 10 hours a year of $1,000 an hour consulting, and those people inevitably come from long-term autoresponder followers. There's nobody that just signed up yesterday that then jumps over to my consulting page and sees the $1,000 an hour rate and shows up in my shopping cart. It inevitably comes from later on. But I'm not telling people that that's really possible for everybody. It's not. But what I am saying is that the value really grows over time.
I think we're making a little mistake to encourage everybody that it's just over time. If you do tests of it, let's say sending people just to a sales page and test putting people on a list instead, and then running emails, we'll say running daily emails for the next 2 weeks, unless you're doing very poorly with the emails, I can almost promise you that the email system is going to earn more profits in that 2-week period than the sales page itself does.
It's been so long since I tried to send people directly to a sales letter that I don't even have statistics on that. I got convinced of that years ago.
We're talking all about all this value long term, but this month, it still has way more value to put people on a list this month than just sending them directly without the email.
The last thing I'll say before we talk about how to improve email and where people tend to go wrong is that I forgot what I was going to say, so I'm not going to say that. I had something important. There's something really important.
That was very wise, Glenn.
It wasn't a very wise and profound. My brain just skipped out in the middle of that. I don't know what happened. It was really important, too. So why don't we talk about how people go wrong with email? Even though it's so powerful, most people seem to have trouble getting it right. And could we talk about what it means to get it right and why it's so troublesome for people to get it right?
I think the biggest issue people have with getting it right is finding the center of the road. They fall off in the ditch on either side of the road. And those two ditches on the email road are, first of all, is we have just giving away basically unlimited content, giving away everything you know in the emails, and I'll come back to that in a second. That's one side. Ditch on the other side is just running sales pitches. People fall in both of those ditches, and then email doesn't work for them, and they come back and say, well, email doesn't work anymore. It's because you're falling into the two mistakes. Let's go to the content mistake first. The content mistake that people make is they say, okay, well, I'm just going to keep giving value. I'm going to give more content, give more value. People are going to see how valuable I am, and then they're going to buy my products and services. And there's also the statements out there such as we're moving the free line. We're constantly moving the free line to give people more and more value for free. And what ends up happening is you want to give content, and we'll talk about how to do the content correctly as we go along this conversation. But if all you do is give content, well, what is the value to somebody if everything's free? They end up not respecting that value. Have you ever tried to give advice to a friend who asks about their subject?
You realize you're asking that question to a licensed psychologist.
Yeah, so what happens, Glenn, when you give free advice?
It's usually worth what they pay for it. More importantly, free advice is usually something that people perceive as reflexive and not well thought through. People prefer to have a smaller amount of cogent advice after they feel like they've established a relationship and they've been heard.
Here's kind of, I think, the biggest switch we can do right here. Instead of thinking about the fact I'm going to do a content dump, I'm going to give people as much content as I possibly can, or I'm going to regurgitate all this content to them, think of yourself as a trusted advisor in the marketplace, which means you're going to tell people the right direction to go. Okay, that is what your job as an email marketer is you're going to be their trusted advisor, giving them a direction to go. That means that you will give some content. But that also means that I'm going to tell them to buy if I believe it's in their best interest to buy this. Because I'm an advisor telling them the right direction. I'm going to give them warnings of what they need to stay away from at the same time. I'm going to tell them mistakes that I've made. A big portion of the content that I send out is what I call the 3 M's, which are myths, mistakes, and misconceptions. What myths are in the market? What mistakes have I made? And what kind of misconceptions do they likely have about whatever the subject is that we're talking about? And so it's not just, hey, I'm going to give you the entire step-by-step systems. Just go do this and succeed. It's more than that. It's giving you my experience and working in who I am to the emails and being that advisor that shows you the right direction.
Let's both give an example of that, okay? Just so that it makes sense. What's an example of a myth that you would expose to give your market the right guidance?
Well, in my market, a huge myth is that cheap traffic is what internet business is all about. If you can get enough cheap traffic, you're just going to succeed online. That's a huge myth. The truth about it is if you can learn how to convert better than the competition, you can get as much traffic as you want. It's not about tapping into the cheapest traffic. It's about creating a website that profits even with expensive traffic.
That's the engine of your car. Cheap gas is not going to do you any good if the engine doesn't work.
And I will state that in many different ways, tell stories about that and everything else on my list, because that is such a huge myth in the internet marketing space that it's all about cheap traffic. Every day we have a new product being released about a traffic loophole, how to trick Google, or trick Facebook, or trick somebody else, to get cheap traffic to your site, instead of people focusing on what's important, which is building conversion funnels that work and to tap into long-term traffic that works.
A myth in the coaching market is the idea that you have to be inauthentic in order to market yourself. And most coaches will tell you that they're allergic to marketing and they don't want to study it and they hate those long sales letters and they feel like marketing means being a used car salesman or a dirty used car salesman. I think, by the way, there are such things as really good, ethical used car salespeople. I think it's just a stereotype in our culture. The truth is that to market yourself as a coach, you have to be hyper-authentic. You have to be on the alert for anything that doesn't sound authentic. You need to market with relationships. You need to go out and do workshops. You need to coach people in live events so that they can experience what it's like to be with your authentic personality. It's the opposite. Going out and building a website and spending $15,000 on graphics and Google AdWords and making all types of hypey claims is not going to work for you as a coach. It's authenticity that really works.
It sounds like that if they're doing online marketing, they should be using a lot of email. That's what works in email also.
Well, email is probably the most authentic medium, right? Because that's where you write a letter to your grandma. That's where you get a note from your kids. That's where you're kind of in casual, informal, communicating in the living room kind of mode. I really do think it's the most authentic marketing form if you use it correctly.
Exactly.
That's a myth. Should we talk about a misconception?
A misconception, let's go to a mistake because it lines up with this, okay? Mistakes would be the one I already mentioned earlier. After it happened, I told that mistake. I had focused so much on free traffic from Google. Right after I got hit by a Google slap on SEO, is I talked how that was a big mistake on just focusing on that cheap traffic from Google. And instead, I should have been spending more time concentrating on the funnels. My funnels worked, but I went in with more intensive time after that to make sure they worked even better and see how that hooked up with the message that I want to share.
Yep, so that you'd have the conversion and then you can get traffic from all over.
Yeah, so that's a mistake, and so I'm letting people know that I make mistakes. And here's one of the mistakes I made.
I wrote an article on my blog, which of course I then pulled into an email, that was called Why Great Copywriters Go Broke. The idea was, which was something that I had in the back of my mind, was that all you really needed to know how to do to make a fortune on the internet was write good copy. I still believe that writing good copy is essential. Matter of fact, I think that it's necessary. I just don't think it's sufficient. I think you have to pay attention to the rest of your business. What is it that you're actually going to sell and how are you going to deliver it, and negotiating deals with that and setting up customer service and dealing with the outsourcing and systems and all the things that you need to consider, because I think that there is I guess this is a myth perhaps. There's a myth online that says you're just one letter away from $1 million. I think you really have to modify that to say you're one letter and all that other stuff away from $1 million, like all the other stuff in the business away from $1 million. So it's true, but it's true in context. The point here isn't really to get people to understand that, but to get them to understand that when you identify something which needs clarification and you put it forth in a realistic way to the market, you're putting yourself in the position of a trusted advisor, and people feel helped and connected, and they want to know, well, what else do you have to say? What else do you have to offer?
Let me give you a misconception now. Okay, a misconception, when I talk about that, generally I'm talking about something that you heard directly from your customers. And a lot of times in my emails, I don't see a lot of people do this, but I really like these types of emails because they're easy. I like easy, and that is answering a question. So you send out your regular newsletters and somebody sends in a question, they ask a question directly to you, or you can even sometimes find questions by going over to a forum and looking what kinds of questions people are asking on forums in your market. So they ask me a question about, we'll stay with the same subject of traffic, and they say that they just tried to set up their first AdWords campaign, but they only earned back 50% of what they spent. It just didn't work for them. Well, that's an obvious misconception, so I could put and actually paste the text of that email, often save their name. Unless I've asked their permission, I won't list their name with the question, but I'll start an email off with a question like that, put in the text of the question exactly in quotes, and then I'll spend the rest of the email answering that question, which is obviously in the case of AdWords, if they started off the first day and they got 50% return, they're doing really well. Now, here's the ways that they can start optimizing it. And then at the end of that, I'd give a couple ways to start optimizing it. Then I'd probably link to a course at the very end of the email and offer a course that's going to help them optimize it even faster.
Exactly. Terry, do you have a folder on your computer? I do. It's just a folder for whenever I answer a customer's question and I think that I answered it well. I just take a copy of that email and I put it in that folder because I know that that's a tremendous resource. It's like some people think of answering those questions as annoying, like it's taking away from making money. It's not really helping you build your business. But the truth is your customers are forcing you to do the copywriting right there and then. I hold that in a separate folder. Do you do that?
Well, I have it inside of my email. I have a separate folder in my email that I just move it over to. So I will have the email, the reply to it, and just toss them over there to the side. And sometimes I'll see a question and I'll think, hey, that's a great question. And I will then give them a very extensive answer with the intention that that's going to become a newsletter to send out.
Right, cool. So those are the 3 M's: mistakes, misconceptions, and myth. What else do you teach people to do in order to become effective with their email? What about just getting open rates?
Open rates, the biggest thing I can tell you for open rates is think about, for most of my subject lines, you're going to see that your from address and your subject line both come in here. And of course, the deliverability from your email, things like that are involved. But for the from line, for most people, I tell them to use a personal name in the from line. Or you could use a branded business name, and I have some clients who use a branded business name, and it works almost as well. If you subscribe to my list, though, you're going to see it comes from Terry Dean. Do not change it back and forth, though. Keep one stable thing on your from line.
Yeah, I made that mistake once.
For the subject line, you want to use what I call benefit plus curiosity subject lines, which I learned way back learning from Gary Halbert and John Carlton about writing headlines. and that is benefit plus curiosity. And I actually went back to one of my autoresponder sequences recently, checking on all the subject lines, open rates, click-through rates, and things like that. And it was very clear how proven this was. The ones that had either weak on the benefit or weak on the curiosity had a much lower open, click, and sales rates from them as I went through them. So it's benefit plus curiosity. So what does that mean? That means that I'm looking for what is the benefit to this person and how can I make it curious also. An example email, I remember I had a huge open rate and huge response to it, was an email with a subject line I had put in, the dangers of blogging naked. Well, there's an implied benefit that I'm going to give you some benefit about blogging. Then, of course, the curiosity is that one last word on it, naked, the dangers of blogging naked. Just so that, no one becomes too curious about it, that email was about security on a blog when you got into the bottom line of it.
I'm actually working on a blog post called Masturbation, Marketing, and Making Money. I'll leave it at that for now.
Well, see, on that one, the benefit is obviously making money, and I think everyone can figure out the curiosity part of that one.
That's true. The curiosity is not only the use of the masturbation word, but it's what does masturbation have to do with marketing?
Yes. An easier way to do this for someone who's just starting off.
You mean without getting arrested?
Yeah, without getting arrested and without being crude or anything else, is just put a number, okay? 7 unique methods of making money. Okay, 7 unique methods of losing 30 pounds. Things are like that. The reason is because you get the benefit, and just doing the 7 unique right at the very beginning of it, it gives curiosity there because you're like, well, I know a couple. That's your immediate response to that.
I don't know 7.
Yeah, I don't know 7, so I got to see what are the other 5, and maybe do I know them or not. So you kind of have to open it because remember, the only purpose of the subject line is to get the email opened. That's the only purpose of a subject line. Get the email opened. Do keep it on topic. A lot of times what I'll do with an email is I'll sit down and write a starting subject line. I'll write the email, and then I'll go back and do a new subject line based off of whatever the most interesting thing in the email was. So that's an easy way to throw curiosity is it's 7 ways to do this.
Terry, one of the things that you also taught me a long time ago was there are different roles that you play with your audience or different hats that you wear. Like sometimes you're the trusted advisor, sometimes you're the friend bearing gifts, sometimes you're the outraged critic who's going to stand up and say the emperor has no clothes and why isn't anybody else talking about this? Can you say a little bit more about the different roles that you play and how do you supervise people to find the right one for their market?
Well, it's interesting now because you'll see I've fallen into the role of why isn't anybody talking about this is one of the major elements. Whenever I'm teaching anybody doing email, I talk a lot about why isn't anybody else talking about this right now because that's a place to set yourself as separate. Okay, and here's another good comparison since I started off talking about that it's not just about sending out a bunch of free content. It's about sending out contrarian content that's different than what everybody else is saying. So that's the big thing. Why isn't anyone else talking about this? What is it in your market that gets you angry, that gets you emotional, or that you can see in the market that people are making this mistake and it just frustrates you to no end because that's a point of where your passion is. That's something that you can become passionate about. And email really works well if you could become passionate. And my best emails have been written when I was somehow emotional about the subject. That meant I was mad about something. I was upset about something. And now if you're really mad about it, I would suggest that you write the email right now when you're really mad about it and leave it till tomorrow to edit it before you send it out.
Right.
But actually write it while you're still in the emotion, if you can. I don't know if I even talk about it as much as the different hats we put on now because I'm always wanting to be that trusted advisor, but I want to be a personality that stands out in the market, which means I'm going to talk about things that nobody else is talking about and nobody else is willing to share with them. That's the position I really want to be with my customers and my audience. I have a lot of different styles of emails that I write in, such as doing Q&A type email that I already talked about, going in and leading in with a story, giving, a series of tips, lots of different types like that. But I guess I don't really separate it by hats as much anymore.
That's okay. I agree with you that the enraged, why isn't anybody pointing out that the emperor has no clothes? I agree with you that's exceptionally valuable, and it's also easier to find than people think. When I talk to people about this, they're afraid they can't find it, and they say, well, everybody's kind of saying the same thing in the market, and I say, well, that's what you talk about. People are just copying each other, and when they're just copying each other, they're inevitably being lazy and they're not identifying some benefits. There's some gap in the marketplace where people have a need that isn't being addressed.
Well, can I give everybody a really quick tip? This is like a super easy tip for email, and this can help you spot that. It can help you come up with a whole bunch of subject lines. It can help you come up with some emails to write also. Go out and find a couple of popular discussion groups in your market. I mentioned it before, but I want to just give people the entire system right here as a takeaway. Go and find a couple of popular discussion groups in your topic. And then what I want you to do is most discussion boards allow you to either click on the views. It's going to be at the top right of the discussion board. You can click on views, most viewed post. You can click on views, or you can click on replies. Click on one of those, because what it's going to do is it's going to pull the most popular posts to the top of the forum. And then what you can do is you can start scanning through the forum to find the most popular post, to find yourself some good ideas for subject lines. If something stood out and has 10 times as many views as the regular post in the forum, then that's likely a subject line that grabs people's attention. So you can look at that and then open it up. Go into the post, start reading the post, see what somebody's ranting about, see what questions they're asking, what's the problem being discussed, and you get a whole lot of ideas for the email. Now, I've actually directly swiped the title of the post. I wrote the email myself based off of what kind of questions people are asking and things like that. I didn't swipe from the inside of the post. I directly swiped the title of the post at times.
Yeah, you'd think the past tense should be swope. I always want to say that. I swope the title. That's a brilliant tip. That's a brilliant tip.
That's an easy way to start getting this model too, because you'll get all kinds of language. And so if you're sitting there saying, well, what should I write about? I'm just getting started. That's how you get started. That's the easiest way to get started and get some ideas to start moving in your market directly related to your market.
What about transitioning to the sale? It's like when you're giving content away in the email or like on the blog, do you have any tips for how to transition from the story that you're telling or the blog post that you wrote or the tips that you're giving? How do you transition from there to the sale?
I must like alliteration, so let me give you my 3 E's. That is entertain, educate, and earn. That's the way I like to just describe it. And what I mean by that is with the emails, I like to start off with something that's entertaining. Then we're going to get into something that's educational for them. Then we're going to get into something that earns me money. That's what we're going to do at the end. Entertainment means that in most cases, we'll start with something that's not all the time, but there'll be some kind of a story or a metaphor that I start off with. Or it could be a question, same thing there, kind of entertaining because here's a question that somebody just sent me. I guess you can call, answering a question a mini story because they sent me this question. I just got this question. I'm going to answer it now. That's how it's going to work. Then I'll go into whatever the tips are that I'm giving, and then we'll go into how we're going to earn me money. Email, let's say that I take one of the tips emails because they're easier. 5 ways to do this, whatever. 5 methods to do this. Well, what I'll do is I'll tell somebody to come up with what their 5 tips are. Whichever tip is most related to your product or service, I will throw last. Okay, so it'll be the last tip I talk about will be whichever one's most related to my subject. If we jump back, so I can try to stay on subject with the other things we discussed here, and we jump back to an email where I talk about, here's how you optimize your AdWords campaign. Well, I would take whichever tip I gave them. Let's say that one of the tips I was giving was talking about negative keywords, okay? And then if I wanted to recommend a course that talked all about negative keywords, I'd make sure that tip was last in the email. And then what I would do is there'd be a nice natural transition. I talk about negative keywords. Well, I only have so much time in this email. I just gave you a couple tips on how to do negative keywords, but I just watched this video by my buddy. We'll just say my buddy Glenn Livingston. There was a point, I think that original email might have been for a service you had there.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I just watched a video from my buddy Glenn all about negative keywords. He talks about all these different things.
From the agency. I remember that.
And you can go and watch that here, okay? That's how we're transitioning sales. So that would be like an affiliate sale that I want to do. Here's transitioning into that offer. And you can do that type of transition no matter what it is that you're talking about. Sometimes it's not as natural a transition. See, that's a natural one, and I try to look for natural ones. But let's do an unnatural transition. Okay, I tell a story, and with stories, you have what I call your origin stories, how you got started in this business, how you discovered this product, things like that. Those are easy stories to tell. I was searching for this product because I kept running into this problem, and I kept looking for a solution, and I eventually discovered my solution, which of course at the very end is, this wonderful product that talks about the solution. That's an origin story to work in. You can also have daily stories, what happened in your life each week. And that would be, for example, what happened in your life this week that you would want to tell your spouse, a friend, a child, when you met them, you'd have to say, you wouldn't believe what happened this week. That's the kind of story that you want to tell in an email, that same story. But I want to go to a different story and show how we can even take a little tougher things. Because I'll look at stories in my life, like what story can I tell that's entertaining? And then maybe I have to find a transition that works for it. Here's an entertaining story, and that was when I first invited my wife out. My wife and I are going to be married on December 23rd. It'll be 20 years for us. It'll be a 20th anniversary. I go back to when I first met her and first asked her out. I asked her if she wanted to go out with me. She ignored the question and went on with, I don't remember what she was talking about at the time, but she went on talking about some other subject. That's kind of hard when you're doing that. So then I asked her again, hey, you didn't answer the question. She said, what question? I said, if you want to go out with me Friday night. And her response to me, the first response ever from my loving wife was, sure, I'm not afraid to go out with you. My response back to it was a humorous, well, thank you that I don't have that serial killer look to me. So, but what's the lesson there? So see, we always entertain. That's the entertainment part. What's the educational part? The educational part, let's just throw it in with email, is with email, you're going to experience some rejection sometimes. You're going to have people who ignore you, and you're going to have people who might make a rude comment back to you. If you're going to run for the hills, when the first person says a negative comment to you, you're not going to last an email at all. Then, of course, I could easily transition that into selling my email course. See how that's just a natural transition all the way through, even if it's a little tough to find what I'm going to talk about with that story.
Exactly. That's great. And I think that people will pay for a change of mood. Your email is getting to them in the context of crazy things going on at work, stressful days. They're kind of looking for a distraction in some way. People are stressed out by the kids, whatever it is. And so then into their box comes this like mood-changing machine. And it's almost like a drug. If you look for stories throughout your day that changed your mood, that's a clue to something that's going to be effective to change their mood, get their attention, and they're very likely to want to continue to get more of that, and so they might be in a buying mood. I am also always looking, not necessarily logically searching for stories, but when I notice that my mood changed all of a sudden, I go and I write that down because I know I'm going to want to tell it later.
We should even throw this in. We look for fun stories, we look for mood-changing stories, but it doesn't mean every story you tell is going to be lighthearted or things like this. Some of your best stories, the absolute best stories to tell, are case studies from your customers and clients. So if you have a case study you can tell, that is a story, and that's going to be pretty much the strongest story you can tell, that you're always looking for case studies, you're always looking for replies from your audience, and you're always in connection with your audience to tell their stories. And see, with a case study, it's the same thing. Look, you start off the entertainment is the case study. What problem did the person start in? What's the end solution? Where did they get to in the case study? And of course, then you can go into the educate where you're going to give them some tips of what they did, whatever tips that person was doing. You're not going to go into full detail. You're going to give a couple of things that they did. That's the educational part. And then the earning part is, what is their connection to you? Did they buy one of your products? And that's what the case study is about. Were they coaching with you? And that's what we're going to lead into the sale for.
Very cool. With all your depth of knowledge and your decision to focus on email, have you created any type of a course that people can study? I know you have coaching, but there's kind of a long waiting list. Is there a course that you can study? Do you have templates people can use? How does that work?
Well, you know the answer to that, Glenn. And
of course, I'm setting you up, man. I'm giving you a softball.
Well, the answer is I want to give people another tip right here, and that is the easiest way to learn pretty much any type of copywriting or email writing is to start off with modeling. Okay? And modeling, for me, originally, I learned modeling through Gary Halbert and John Carlton. Great copywriters. Gary Halbert has passed on. John Carlton, I actually was in his coaching program early on, so he would review my copy and everything else. One of the things I learned from them was with John Carlton, specifically in his coaching course, he provided you with these basically full sales letters he had written to give you ideas and for you to help model from. And so I did that with my original copywriting as I was modeling through his sales letters, which means I would take his headlines and then play with his headlines to create my copy, and that really got me started. It was a great way to learn was by modeling what was already there. So one of the things I did for my clients, because I found how valuable the modeling was, it's hard to go out and do things basically totally cold with nothing already ready for you, is I put together 80 of my best emails, and then I went through them and updated them for what works best today, making sure they're today's products to what works today, to adding all the strategies I know to the emails. And I created 80 templates out of these of different emails. And out of those 80 templates, I'd say that there's at least 60 different styles of emails. I mentioned how there's Q&A emails, there's straight story, there's tips. Those are just the beginning of them. There's 60 different styles I have to the email templates. And then what I did next, besides giving you the exact text of the emails, is I broke each one down to the templates and told you why each part of that email works, what's important about each part of the email. That gives you a tool that you can immediately take and use to start building your emails. And it's kind of funny. I created this, but I still go back through it to look at my templates sometimes to give myself new ideas. I will go through, look at the templates, give myself an idea for another email. Well, I haven't done this one in a while. And I can do that one really quick. It inspires me for this story that I had that I wanted to stick into one. And there's the template for it.
You know the sign of a good product when the best customer is yourself, right?
It is. And I give that entire template series, a manual, as a free gift for giving my autoresponder course a try. It's a 6-week video, and there's also audio downloads. It's a video training course, has audio downloads in addition, plus it has cheat sheets for each week that take you step by step through my models of creating email, which means we start off with your audience and me teaching you about modeling, how to use the templates, because you get those immediately. Even if you chose to return the course for a refund, you get to keep all those templates in PDF form for your own use, just for trying it out. You go through it. We teach about modeling the first week, how to use the templates well, how to model the emails. The next week, I get into talking about your audience, getting to know your audience, the easy ways to get to know your audience, to get feedback from your audience, to find out more about your audience. We go into how to write your own customer avatar, exactly who you're marketing to. And it's interesting, I wrote the course and created the course with the aspect of you following along with me. So on the video, for example, of the avatar video, you will actually see me sitting down and writing out an avatar for a new market based on the research I had just done in that market. And you'll see me make mistakes, because I want you to be able to model and follow along with me as I correct the mistakes and work on it right there in front of you on the video, as I said, or you can be listening to it by audio. And that means you can follow along with me in that course. We keep going on through. I talk about doing special offers, even how to create special offers, discount offers in an autoresponder sequence. That can be done, and it's very profitable. As we go on further into the weeks, I'll even talk about the more advanced issues, such as sublisting and things like that with your email list. And we'll talk about, in a couple of additional bonuses I have for you, how to grow your list quickly.
I don't know if you really underscored the value of observational learning enough. It's a whole body of research in psychology that talks about how that's the way we're most naturally wired to learn. We're not necessarily wired to learn by having someone stand up in front of us and show us the 6 different conjugations of the verb and repeating it 17 times. We're wired to learn by watching each other do what we do best. And they've found that when they've kind of gone head-to-head in a number of different learning experiments, that you can actually learn in one trial when you observe someone else doing something, as opposed to trying to read and study and have repetition. And so it's a very efficient way of learning, and it's why there are things like internships and mentorships, and why the most successful people, when you ask them about their past, they tend to have had an apprenticeship in some place with a really powerful person, is because that's really the way the most powerful knowledge is passed on. I've had the opportunity to learn with Terry, to work with Terry, and watch him write copy, watch him write emails, and I've experienced direct results from that. I couldn't endorse it more, so I'll give you a URL to go to when we're done with the recording, which is now. And I couldn't endorse it more. I think you should go over, and at the very least, why don't you get the course so you can download the templates and checklists, and then if you decide that that's not for you, then, Terry's very good about refunds and whatnot, so that's what I recommend. Terry, anything else?
Nope, I think we covered a lot here. I want to leave everybody with the big message that we have here, which is that email and learning how to build those relationships, be that trusted advisor to your list, is the most valuable thing you can do, no matter how you're generating traffic, whether it's through SEO, through pay-per-click, through social media. You get people onto a list, you build a relationship with that list, and then that list can take care of you for years into the future.
Let me say one more thing. Now I remembered what I was going to say when I had a brain fart earlier. It's not unreasonable to possibly double your traffic with email, because I have seen so many examples of systems that are already making money and are pretty profitable, where the emails are basically terrible. And for example, subject line, first name, comma, here's your newsletter number 1. First name, comma, here's your newsletter number 2. And they're making money anyway. Even if your email is not quite that bad, when you understand the principles of generating click-through, selling the click, putting people in the right mindset, pre-selling, getting them ready to purchase when they get to your site, it's not unreasonable that you could double the traffic and double the sales. And the great thing about it is that it doesn't really cost any more money. You don't have to pay for that traffic again. You already have contact with them. You just send them another email, except this time it's something that gets their attention and gets them to click. So honestly, I generally hate to sell by telling people that they're stupid if they don't something, but you know what? You guys are stupid if you don't do this. You really are. You really are. The one and only time I'm going to say that, but it would be really stupid not to do this.
That subject line of so-and-so, here's your newsletter number 1, number 2, that's exactly what I was doing the first couple of years when I was talking about the $1 a month per subscriber.
That's what I was doing when I was doing the guinea pig and rabbit newsletters. Here's your guinea pig newsletter number 1. Here's your guinea pig newsletter number 2.
So I've made that mistake. See, there we go, talking about our mistakes again. So I've been there, I've done it, and email really is the strongest power tool. If you can get people on the list, then you can make the sales.
Yeah, very good. Thanks very much for your time and attention. If you'd like to find out more about multiplying your profits dramatically with email in the way that Terry discussed, please visit glennlivingston.com/email. glennlivingston.com/email. Thanks. Hey, are you still listening? Since you are, let me tell you a few more things about email that you might not know. The Direct Marketing Association recently released a report in The Power of Direct that said that the email marketing's average return on investment was $40.56 for every dollar invested, far ahead of SEO at $22.24, social media at $12.71, or mobile marketing at $10.51. Now you can tap into those kind of results too and multiply your profits in 7 days or less in any market by modeling Terry's proven collection of $1,000,000 emails at glennlivingston.com/email. glennlivingston.com/email. Are you really still here? Okay, I guess I'll tell you something else then. Email can be even more valuable in a crowded marketplace. So let's talk about this. How many marketing messages are out there for your prospects every single day? The fact is they're overwhelmed with sales pitches. Around every corner is another hard pitch begging for money, including billboards, TV, radio, Facebook, Twitter, banner, Google, blog, search engines, and on and on and on. It just never ends. And even their email is overloaded with offers. So you're trying to figure out how to become unforgettable in a world filled with wall-to-wall advertising. And some people will tell you to just send more content, but that's not really the answer. It's better than not following up, but it doesn't work the way that it used to if you don't know how to do it, because people are actually overwhelmed with content today. Basic information is available at the click of a mouse on Google or any other search engine. We're drowning in content from blogs, videos, and social media. So content by itself won't ever break through the marketing shields that your future customers are setting up to survive in the world today. Instead, here's what you have to do. You need to become their most trusted advisor. So when you know how to do this, when you know how to become their most trusted advisor, you make the competition irrelevant. A trusted advisor goes way beyond content. They provide direction. You become a light that shines in the darkness. You form an intimate bond with your prospects. Your subscriber clicks the links that you send because they know you have their best interest at heart and you've earned that trust. All you have to do is send a link and subscribers can click over to the order form. No hard sell required. That's what it means to become a trusted advisor, and that's what Terry Dean's course is about at glennlivingston.com/email. glennlivingston.com/email. Are you really still listening? Okay, I guess I'll tell you something else then. Let's talk about a third-party study by Experian Marketing Services. Experian publishes a quarterly report that shows that their clients' email results across all industries like consumer products, catalogs, business to business, entertainment, retailers, and travel shows that profits have increased in the last year. So revenue per email subscriber is up 8% according to Experian's report. Unique open rates were up by over 12.8%. Unsubscribe rates decreased by about 20%, a little less than 20%. And so I hope you can see that contrary to the sky is falling conspiracy theorists, email is not only alive and well, but return on investment, open rates, click-through rates, and average dollar per sales are all increasing. In addition, unsubscribe rates have a small drop from the previous year. Now, here's a statistic that Experian doesn't quote, but we can extrapolate. Experian talks about statistics for the average email marketer, but you know that the average email marketer probably sends 1 or 2 emails a month. Now, if you extrapolate their revenue per subscriber to mailing on a daily basis, what you find is you're making more than $50 per subscriber per year. More than $50 per year per subscriber. Do you think you can get opt-ins for less than $50? I think you can. So, to find out more, please go to glennlivingston.com/email. glennlivingston.com/email. Thanks. Dude, why are you still listening? Head on over to terrydean.com/email. terrydean.com/email. Those letters are not going to type themselves. So go over to terrydean.com/email, and I think you'll thank me for it. Thanks. Are you still listening? Really? Really? Okay, well, if you're still listening, let me tell you that every module in Terry's course comes with easy to use bonus cheat sheets and email exercises that you can put into practice immediately. So the cheat sheets you get are customer answers and hidden buyer psychology and how to set up your email buyer avatar, how to brand yourself as a superhero, how to develop contrarian content for your email, how to write your email fast, how to edit your emails, how to make big offers via email, and an email resource. The last thing that I'll tell you is that this is really not that expensive. So head on over to glennlivingston.com/email, glennlivingston.com/email. It's actually extraordinarily cheap considering how much unleveraged potential there probably is in your email list and how quickly you can make back the money. glennlivingston.com/email. That's it. Okay, bye.